Forged from Iron is proud to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham United fans and friends inspired by the work of other football fan food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations from Newham Food Bank in Beckton, who supply 7 distribution centres in the borough, 7 days a week, and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. They are supported in their efforts by West Ham United Football Club, the WHU Foundation, LS185, London Legacy Development Corporation, Newham Council, the Met Police, Spire London East Hospital, Expedient Security, and a large number of West Ham and football fans. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thank you for your support. Come on, you Irons. So today's match at Craven Cottage finished 1-1 between West Ham and Fulham. And the first thing that I was drawn to when the teams were announced, and I scanned through the starting 11, I scanned through the substitutes bench, and the first thing that I noticed was that once again, a glaring omission from the matchday squad was a certain Maxwel Cornet. Now, Maxwel Cornet picked up an injury in the fixture, the Premier League fixture on now the 1st of October against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And the initial prognosis was that it was, you know, a couple of weeks was the recovery time and recuperation and all of the rest of it. And we got to the end of the pre-World Cup part of the Premier League season, and there was still no sign of him. We had reports that he had resumed training, and as David Moyes likes to use the phrase, he was on the grass. But then there was reports that came out very quickly thereafter that suggested that he'd broken down again. And then we're hearing all of these stories about he has this thing where he doesn't play, he doesn't like to sort of put himself into action unless he is feeling 100% fit, and if he feels any sort of niggle that he's just not interested in taking to the pitch. Now, I don't know whether this is true, I don't know whether this is conjecture. If it is true, it is rather concerning. I don't know of many Premier League players, in fact probably there's been many examples over the years of players playing through the threshold of pain and putting it all on the line for their team, putting it all on the line for the fans, giving value for money. And especially in these days, you know, where we're all struggling to pay bills, and the Premier League footballers are earning an awful lot of money compared to the average man on the street, and they're not going to have any problems in paying their gas and electricity bills like us mere mortals. So it's rather galling when you hear of players that have rather minor injuries that if they were a little bit more hardy in their mindset, a little bit more toughness, they wouldn't flinch at taking to the pitch. And yet we've got a player here that we've spent a decent amount of money on in terms of a transfer fee from Burnley, and also in terms of his wages. And he's a player that has, on his day, he's got a great deal to bring to the table, and especially in the situation we're in. He can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play as a striker, he can play as a fullback. Very, very versatile player. And on his day, he can be a very, very dangerous player for opposition. I mean, in the games that he's had this season, he's been effective. He's had goals, he's had assists, he's hit the post away at Chelsea after coming on as a substitute. So this is a player that when he's on the pitch and when he's on his game, very, very useful player for us to have in our ranks, especially given the situation that we're in. We try to pull ourselves away from the wrong end of the Premier League table, but he's nowhere to be seen. And no one seems to know why. It's just, it seems to be radio silence from the club, and no one really seems to have a clue what's going on. I've not seen anything definitive that says he is going to be out and his return will be this. I heard stories about, we hope he'll be available for the Arsenal game. Well, I would suggest if he's not in the matchday squad for the last friendly fixture before that game takes place, that makes that incredibly unlikely. I think that the chances of him being involved in the game at the Emirates on Boxing Day are vanishingly slim. In any, even just sort of like for him to be on the bench, I think is going to be a tall order. But this is something that shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone, because if you actually look at his record before he signed for West Ham, he's a player that has these spells out injured. But I really find, like I say, I find it really difficult to try and have a great deal of sympathy for a player. I mean, look, if he'd had a broken leg or something like that, then fine. But like I say, it's a muscle injury. He's been out for approaching 3 months now, and there's no sign of him. And no one from the club, no one seems to be coming out and saying it's a really bad one. He's going to be out until the new year. Fine, no problem. You know where you stand. But we've heard that he was coming back, he was training, and then there's this talk about, he doesn't like to play unless he's 100% fit. Well, I'm sorry, but Craig Dawson last season was playing with an injury, but he just gritted his teeth and got on with it because he had the right mentality, he had the right mindset to push through and try and help West Ham when they needed the help from him. When we had a defensive crisis, he was the only fit centre-back. He couldn't cry off injured. He couldn't run away, hand a sick note in and go off to sit down and sort of relax and whatever. He had to sort of like front up, stand up and be counted, and he did so. Many other examples through the years. I mean, you look at Angelo Ogbonna, the first season we moved to London Stadium. We was in danger of relegation, a familiar theme through our history for long-standing supporters such as myself. He had an injury. He played on with that. He played through that injury. And once we got into a spot where relegation was no longer going to be a consideration, that was the point when he then went and had the operation done that he needed to get done. But he didn't get it done until that we were safe. He had the mindset, he had the right minerals to play through the pain barrier. And if you want to sort of like, people that are a lot older than I will know the story of Bert Troutman, who played and won an FA Cup final with a broken neck. Obviously, this is someone from a bygone era. This is a cup final in the 50s, but it's a story that's etched into the folklore of FA Cup finals. Fantastic story, and I just think that this isn't a player that's got an injury problem other than his mindset. It just seems to me that he doesn't have the attitude of it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Now, people might know the story with Maxwel Cornet, and it may well be that people turn around and say I'm being very unfair. And if that's the case, then fine. If he has a genuine injury that has kept him out all this time, fine. But there's too many whispers that have come out from various sources that seem to suggest or imply that this is a player that has something of a slack attitude in terms of playing with any sort of injury, that he has to be absolutely right before he takes to the pitch. Now, I just think that when you're a footballer getting paid these sort of sums of money, and especially in these times when we're all going through this cost of living crisis and we're all finding it difficult and to put food on the table, to our homes, to keep our loved ones warm, and then you've got a multi-millionaire Premier League player who just he's missing in action. And I would be very surprised if he's not getting paid by the club. I'm fairly convinced that he is getting paid by the club, quite handsomely so. And to do what? To just sit on the sideline scratching his arse? It's something that I'm getting really cheesed off with now. I mean, it's been going on, like I say, for about 3 months, and no one seems to come out. No one from the club seems to know. Even if they turn, I'd actually be happier if the club did come out and say, actually, there's nothing wrong with this player. He's been to medical. He's had the very best of the club doctors and independent doctors that have run the rule over him and said there's nothing wrong with this guy and it's all in his head. I'd actually be happier with that, because at least we'd all know where we stand. We'd all know that, okay, this is a guy that has problems. They're psychological problems. They're not physical problems. They're problems in his head, and he needs to overcome them some way, somehow. But no one seems to know. We're playing this game of where's Maxi, and he needs to get his act together, because he's being paid an awful lot of money, and we're in a situation where we need our players on the pitch contributing to try and pull us away from the wrong end of the Premier League table. And I just, like I say, but it's so typical West Ham. We seem to like buying players that have these problems in terms as injuries are concerned. I mean, like I say, recent examples being Jack Wilshere, Andy Carroll, Kieran Dyer, Freddie Ljungberg, players that we've bought that have had injury records that have been somewhere between questionable and downright diabolical. And it seems we've done it again. But it's just, the club need to get a grip on this, because this can't carry on. And I for one, am getting thoroughly fed up of Maxwel Cornet being out of the squad and no explanation being given as to why he's absent yet again. But anyway, that's just my take on things. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Stay safe, keep warm. Come on, you Irons.